Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. How you all doing, gang? Are you still a fully subscribed, paid-up member to the New Year, New Me group? I must admit, as a guy that earns a living sat down at a computer or sat down on a plane going to a tech conference, 2019 involved me putting on a little bit of weight last year. So I'm currently repenting and leaving all the bad stuff out. I'm putting the cookie jar away, taking the bad stuff out of my diet, and also trying to start running again, because I think I need to lose a good 2 stone or 30 pound in American money. So if you are doing the same, let me know and we can try and support each other and hopefully ensure we last a little bit longer than week 2 or 3 of January. But this isn't Neil's Keep Fit podcast. No, it's a tech show. And today I want to talk about how businesses can make the most of customer data to tell the story of a digital consumer experience. And not only that, translate complicated data from a consumer's online experience and turn it into a story of what the customer is facing online and how it ultimately affects their buying decisions. So I struck up a friendship with Mario Ciabarra, CEO and founder at a company called Quantum Metric, who's going to tell us all about that and much more. So come with me all the way to Colorado Springs so we can speak with Mario now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Mario. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Great to be here, Neil. Thanks for making time. I'm Mario Ciabarra. I'm the CEO and founder of Quantum Metric, and I have the unique honor of leading a team of 150 professionals who help organizations around the globe deliver their best on their digital properties, their websites and their native apps.
I'm looking forward to delving into a little bit deeper on the kind of great work that you're doing here. But before we do, just for everyone listening, get everyone on the same page, can you tell me a little bit more about Quantum Metric and the kind of problems that you're solving with technology for businesses?
Absolutely. Quantum Metric is a digital intelligence platform. And I love saying that because to see someone's face, what is a digital intelligence platform? I often get like, well, what is that? And I think at the root of it, what we deliver is helping organizations deliver with speed. And I think when I talk to executives, one of the top 3 priorities that they have going into 2020 is how do I get my teams to be more agile, to deliver our digital success with speed. And I think it's just one of the number one challenges that they're facing today. It really around iterating product. The speed at which we can develop and release product is becoming the largest differentiator. It's how we meet the demands of this fast-changing consumer. And so what Quantum Metric does is it uses real-time data from actual experiences to help organizations identify, quantify, prioritize, and measure where they can make the biggest impact, where they have the biggest opportunities to improve the digital experiences for their customers.
And it's such a huge word at the moment, digital experiences. It seems that every single boardroom across the globe, there's people sat there trying to work out the secrets to that customer journey and that digital customer journey, which spans across multiple devices now. So my question to you is, how do you take complicated data from that consumer online experience and then somehow turn it into a story of what a customer is facing online and how it ultimately will affect their buying decisions?
You mentioned the word story, and it's funny because I think of data like words, and you can put words into a pile and they roughly have no value. You don't really have that story, but if you can eloquently put together words, you can create a literary masterpiece. Like, here in the U.S., I think about, for example, the Declaration of Independence. Here's a massively impressive document that has changed the nation. When we do this with data, I think most companies would tell you that they have more than their share of data. They have almost a tsunami of data. Yeah. What they're struggling with is how to make sense out of it. And so if we could put data together like we do words for a story, we can drive value. We can drive insights. I hear from some of these companies that they spent the last decade creating data lakes, but they feel like they've created more of a data swamp. And I think data science is about finding the points of value in this large, massive amount of data. So when I think of experiences, what we're looking for in that data is, where are the inflection points? Where are the points where someone's having a negative experience, where they're frustrated, or doubling down on where people are actually enjoying the positive side, where they're really engaging in the digital product that these organizations that we work with are creating. And so for us, it's finding the areas of opportunity. Most of the teams that we work with, they have more challenges than they have resources to go solve. And the biggest thing that we can do is help them figure out which of the challenges they're looking at are going to have the biggest impact to their business. And so from a data perspective and a storytelling perspective, if we can get empathy around the actual experiences that we can have a quick impact to, we can make a large change for the organization it could be if it's a revenue organization, from a bottom line dollar amount. If it's, for example, a fintech, it might just be, I'm having a great experience with your company.
So do you have any use cases or possibly examples that will just help people listening understand the actual kind of difference that you can make to a business and improve that digital journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So many. It's hard to think of just a couple, but I'll come up with a few. I think when you look at all the different moving parts of the digital experience, I look at, what's the lowest hanging fruit? What can we change quickly that would have a drastic impact? And it turns out today people will abandon a website or abandon an app if something takes longer than a second or two, which is sort of crazy to think about. That if even just 1 or 2 seconds can be the difference between success and failure. And so some of the things that we've done early on as we engage with customers is help them understand the impact of performance on their success. And so, I look at it as, if I lead a digital organization and I go to one of my team members and say, hey, can you make the site faster? They said, oh, I did that last week. And you kind of give up, like, all right, well, they did that last week. But that doesn't really work. And we see those types of conversations happening today. What we do with Quantum is that we can help convey, if we can make that site 1 second faster, you can make 12 million pounds of revenue. And that starts to get people to think, well, it would take me about 3 people to go make that change. And that's probably going to cost me about 100,000 pounds, but yet we'll have a 12 million pound return. This is probably something I should work on. And it's something that I could achieve pretty quickly with just a few team members. And I think as you go up the tree of low-hanging fruit, you'll find things like, well, there's bugs, there's poor experiences, there's bad content layout. And I think as you get higher and higher along that fruit of those different types of challenges, it might take you longer to reach that high up on the tree, but there's very rich and juicy fruit to go address. And so whether it's speed, I think about an issue, for example, of a major retailer that had a problem with a specific browser. They had no idea that folks on IE11 weren't able to check out at all. It was a massive retailer. They had no clue. And that browser only had about a 2% impact on their business, but who would want to throw away 2% of their business? And I think about another entertainment company that we work with that had an issue with their address lookup. And the problem is, when you have these types of issues, someone might call in or fill out a survey, and it gets eventually over to a developer. And Neil, I don't know if you've worked with a lot of developers before, but one of the worst, most painful things to hear is, it works on my computer. Have you ever heard someone say that to you? Yeah, right. And it's just the most frustrating thing. And I'll be honest, I'm a developer as well. And so whether or not I've said those same words, I don't want to reveal. But but the challenge that we have in our teams is, it's not about reporting it, or whether it's not the biggest issue alone. It's about, how do I get full understanding of the issue? How do I get to repeatability of the issue? Understanding all the characteristics that went into it. And so, where we help out is not only quantifying the issue and helping organizations understand about how much of an impact it has to their business, but understanding all the pieces that went into that puzzle. Whether it was an API call that broke a specific browser, it's even been sometimes down to simply location. It could be the CDN that they were connecting to. It could be that the address lookup for their IP address or their location failed. And these are the types of things that challenge development. And they challenge call centers. They just challenge teams on like, well, what were the factors that went into actually causing the problem? And we're able to give that complete visibility as if we were standing behind the customer. So when it gets to that developer, we have seriously squashed that repeatability or the "it works for me" problem.
And you're guilty of giving me a few IT flashbacks there with that phrase, "it works on my computer." There's another one I used to get as well, which was, I think, "it's their network." That was the other one that the developer used to.
Yes. People point fingers. Absolutely. They point fingers and you start chasing your tail, wondering what the root cause of the issue was. Absolutely happens. And I love the ability to be able to solve that for organizations.
And I'm curious because listening to you there, you are clearly someone that is passionate about understanding exactly what's causing problems, the most amount of frustration, and what has the greatest impact on the business. But I've got to ask, where did that passion come from? I've got a feeling there's got to be a story behind your desire to improve the entire digital journey. Is it a dark space or a twisted story? Where did it come from?
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking earlier before we started our call about the APM space. So one of my first companies I started, it was a company called DevStream, and it solved for exactly the problem that you just described, which is, pointing fingers on the back end. Is it the network? Is it the server? Is it a third-party service? Or is it, developer's perspective, the code? I was tired of seeing that issue kind of finger pointed and just wasting time trying to identify the root cause of the issue. And so I created one of the early APM tools. As I mentioned, the company was DevStream. And it was kind of the birth of the DevOps time period. This APM really gave birth to DevOps. Now, as I progressed and I got smarter and older, maybe wiser and older, I realized that this isn't just the only problem that we need to solve. It wasn't just the back end. In fact, as a customer, I rarely cared about, was it the network? Was it the code? Was it a third-party service? I really, really don't care about what's happening behind the scenes. What I only cared about was the experience that I encountered. And so for me, as I kind of got wiser, I started realizing really the only perspective that mattered was that of the customer. And my original startup in DevStream was really looking at it from the back end perspective, and I really needed a way to see things from the front end. And I later on ran an app store, and I realized that it was really hard for me to understand the perspective of the customer. I worked in retail when I first began my early on career as a teenager, and when a customer came into the store, I could see them when they got frustrated. I could see them reaching for something off the top shelf that was hard to get to, and I could go over and help them. And on digital, I realized, how do we do that today? A pop-up box that says, "How can I help you?" doesn't work very well. I don't engage with them, and they're really hard to figure out what's really going wrong. What we really needed was a way at scale, right? We're talking about, in retail physical setting, I'm helping 10 people, but on a digital setting, typically, analysts and executives are trying to address 5 million people on any given day. And so how do we empower individuals to address the challenges of millions of people and look at it from the perspective of the company, which is, how can I make a change that would have the biggest impact in my business? I probably can't solve all of the challenges that every customer is incurring, but can I solve the ones that are impacting my business the most? And so that was kind of the creation story for Quantum. How do I help organizations tackle challenges at scale, do it at speed, and do it from the perspective of the customer with the mind of business in terms of where can we make the largest impact to our business.
And for people listening to our conversation today that have entered the office this morning after a long Christmas break and found that dreaded Understand Customer Journey meeting drop into their inbox, but feel inspired by what they've heard today, what advice would you offer about where to begin and put themselves in the customer's shoes and basically feel their pain and match that to business impact? Is there any advice you could offer around that?
I think the profound moment I like to see, the aha moment I see for our customers, is when they shift their thinking, from data, from just metrics, they might see in an analytics product, to really thinking about every metric from the perspective of their customer. And, I think I think the success story around Quantum is taking, aggregate level metrics from the lens of the customer and tying it with the actual customer's experience and getting that empathy around what really the customer felt when they went through it. And I'll tell you, I've gone into a room, for example, where, I've asked the team to fix an issue and, no one will raise their hand. They're already working on something else. But when I tell them, that the issue is impacting the business, $18 million, everybody raises their hand because no one in that room makes $18 million. And when they get to go home and tell their spouse, their husband, their wife, their kids, I made $18 million today. How was your day? It feels really good. So when you can get that cultural change about doing the right thing actually feels good. And I think what you need to do that, what you need to empower your team to do that is the right data, the right metrics, and the understanding of this is actually what your customers are experiencing, that empathy of I'm proud of my brand, I'm proud of my company, and that's not the type of experience I want my customers to incur. That's when you get that cultural change. So I think, thinking about metrics from the lens of the customer and getting empathy on the team, this is how you really can change the organization.
And talking about that culture change there, I think every office around the world has struggled with that curse of being constantly busy and struggling to shake off the bad habits and the old ways of working. So with that in mind, do any of your clients struggle to change their mindset to working smarter, not harder, and using that time more effectively? Or does it become natural to them?
Yeah, I think every organization, it doesn't matter, I think, if you're in digital or otherwise, like they have this challenge of what should I do today? And the funny thing is, as a startup, like we live and die by this perspective where I believe as the CEO of Quantum, I think we're constantly surrounded by fire. And I get this honor of being the fire chief and pointing, the fire line on the hottest fire. And I think, as a smaller 150 person organization, I have pretty good perspective and view into where all the fires are and which fire is the hottest. I think at larger organizations, it's hard to get that perspective. And I think when I talk to our customers, like, what is the number one thing that we do for your team? What we often heard in the last few years was, you help us quantify the issue. You help us understand which ones are impacting our business the most. So I think, the big change that we see at the clients that we work with is stop thinking about the 100 or 1,000, bugs that you have today to go fix. Think about the top 3 bugs that are impacting your business the most. And so what they use Quantum for is, not only identifying, but quantifying. And then that third step of prioritizing, what can we do that would have the biggest impact to our business? I think that's the mindset that we're trying to instill and when we're having the biggest success with.
And now I've got an image of you stood on a boardroom table in a big fireman's coat just to hammer home that point. That doesn't happen, does it?
Not that directly, but I'll tell you what, people, I interview every candidate here at Quantum. Yeah. And I often get the question, what are the top problems that you're facing today? And I kind of laugh to myself when I get that question because I give the answer, but I tell them also that today's top problems won't be tomorrow's. And my job that I signed up for is constantly tackling what are the biggest issues that will have the biggest impact. So I literally, we like to drink our own champagne, and what we do and help with our organizations, we believe and do here at Quantum is that we're just, when you sign up to be a part of an organization, especially a startup, you're signing up to tackle problems, and that's going to be your day-to-day. And I actually love that and enjoy it every day.
And if we were to take a look under the hood, what kind of technology are you leveraging to enable your customers to quickly deliver those exceptional online experiences that are so important now, especially with the rise of the experience economy?
Yeah, I'm super passionate about performance. My first company, as I mentioned, was about APM. So, we use technologies that are going to be the most performant, that allow us to be the most agile in terms of change and addressing the needs of our customers. But specifically from a technology perspective, some of the languages we use, JavaScript and C++, et cetera, I think that's exciting. But I think really the thing that pushed us, that changed us to be successful was our adoption of cloud, and specifically after evaluating different cloud technologies, specifically with Google Cloud. And I'll even narrow it down into one very specific technology, is that a few years ago, against all will, we decided to, literally, I think honestly, we ran out of options. We embraced a technology called Google BigQuery. And it's this massive petabyte scale analytics platform. And the reason we did it was we wanted to be able to answer any question a customer had around data. And typical relational databases, they have limits around, where are you indexing, what types of questions will you ask? if you want the questions to come back within a reasonable amount of time, a few seconds, you're going to have to think about what types of questions and kind of have guardrails, limits to what you can ask. But our customers were telling us they didn't want limits. They wanted to ask any kind of question possible. So we embraced this petabyte scale analytics platform, a little bit wary about how much this might cost us in the long run. And it turned out by embracing this new technology, not only did it solve this problem with allowing our customers to answer any question, but it actually got us to think outside the box that we were placing ourselves in with technology limits. It allowed us to build into our system some of the data science that our customers were having to do on a daily basis. So we actually were able to think about, well, what is the decision tree that our customers would ask about data? And we built that into our platform. So out of box, we're actually able to detect where our customers frustrated and how much they're costing the business. Those frustrated customers are the segments of customers are actually abandoning. And so that word quantify, which, similarly into the first couple letters of quantum, that ability to quantify where customers are frustrated and how much that's impacting the business was actually solved with technology. It's really, really an exciting just part of our journey, a huge milestone for our success.
And here we are in 2020. We've gone past the era that Blade Runner was set in. We're in a whole new decade of exciting opportunities. So what's next for Quantum Metric? Is there anything else that you can share with us today about the road ahead, or just what excites you about this space?
Tell you what, the 2020 does not look anything like Blade Runner, but but I will say for what's ahead for Quantum, I look a little bit at I look a little bit behind, a little bit at today, a little bit at tomorrow to make that kind of that vision come together for me. But I look at, we just finished our best year ever. We just had double our best quarter ever. So we're coming off a pretty massive high. And you know what? I always look forward to it getting better. But I also, as a realist, know that it gets harder every year, every quarter. It gets harder. But I love that challenge. It's actually what drives me, the excitement, around knowing that, just hearing with my ear to the rail, to know that there's much more awareness, not only about who we are, but around the problems that we're solving, and that they haven't been solved before. And I think, when I get to tell people about who we are and what we do, there's a little bit of a challenge around explaining who we are and how we solve problems. It's if you're Uber Eats, you can just say, I'm Uber for food, and people understand exactly what you solve for. With Quantum, we're solving a larger problem. We kind of started the company off to solve a very simple problem that the market knew about, but it just kind of developed on its own to solving a much larger problem, and a problem around how do we iterate product quickly. And it really came down to, when I looked at the marketplace, the companies that are winning, the companies that are succeeding. If I take a look at a company like Netflix, they've released their products 4,000 times a day. And, we all know the story between Netflix and someone like Blockbuster. And I look at what Netflix did really well is they listened and iterated the product. They aligned their teams around the product, dev, ops, and their customer, and they were able to succeed. And so I think what's exciting for us in 2020 is this unveiling of a new category, a category which we're solving a problem which kind of people know about, but they haven't put words yet to it. And I think it's going to be around, how do I iterate product quickly and at scale to deliver our best digital experiences. So I'm very excited about that coming out in the next few months, and delivering a way for kind of people to put us in a box that they're comfortable with, that they know is driving value for their organization.
Excellent. And a huge thank you for coming on today. So much that I've learned. I know there's going to be so many people that are probably left with even more questions after listening to our conversation. So for those people, could you just remind them of where they can find you online, and also contact your team if they do have any questions?
Absolutely. Both contacting and learning more about us can be done at quantummetric.com. And we are very engaged with the community across product development, operations, and voice and sensing of customer. And we succeed with retail, travel, fintech, entertainment, and other industries. So you'll see us at those industry events. And again, please visit us at quantummetric.com. Neil, I want to thank you so much for making time today, and the opportunity to share with your listeners who we are and how we help digital organizations around the globe.
No, thank you goes straight back to you as well, because I think everybody's hearing more and more about the experience economy, and trying to understand their role in that customer journey is becoming so important to businesses of all sizes. So a big thank you for taking the time to come and share that with me today. Thanks again.
Thank you, Neil. Happy New Year.
Mario is passionate about understanding what's causing customers the most amount of frustration that has the greatest impact on the business, and getting executives to actually put themselves in the customer's shoes. Basically, feeling their pain and then matching it to business impact. For example, if a website has an issue with its search feature that affects 2 million customers versus an issue with its checkout shopping cart page that's affecting 500 customers and actively costing a brand money, obviously the latter should be prioritised. And ultimately, the message I got from this was it's a game of working smarter, not harder, and using time more effectively, which, as we all know, is the only non-renewable resource. So a big thank you to Mario for spending a little time with us today and exploring how businesses can make the most of customer data to tell the story of the digital consumer experience. It isn't a buzzword. There's a bit of a science behind it, but you put that effort in, and as Mario proved, you can make a big difference. But that's me done now. Before I go, I'm just going to pass the virtual microphone over to you and ask that you send me your emails, voicemails, tweets, DMs, whatever it is, to techblogwriter@outlook.com or at Neil C. Hughes across all the social channels. But remember, don't just send over a connection request, a cheeky follow or a like here or a retweet there. I want you to actually say hello and, "Hi Neil, I listen to the podcast. I want to know what you all look like, where you live in the world, and live my life vicariously through you." That's why I'm here. So all that's left for me to say now, though, of course, is a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.